I'll give you your ring back and I'll leave. I can't tell him that. I can't tell him.
You have to.
I can't. He's never gonna forgive this. How is he gonna forgive that?
She called me a liar. She called me a scammer. But she's the real scammer.
It doesn't ease into chaos. It detonates. Lisa sits there already fragile from the night before, already embarrassed, already exposed in ways most people would never recover from on television. And then she drops it, she's still legally married, not divorced, not finalized, not almost done, married. You can actually see Daniel freeze, not dramatic freeze, not performance freeze, the kind where someone is recalculating their entire reality in real time. The room shifts, the energy drains, and suddenly this isn't about paperwork, it's about identity. He repeats it back to her to make sure he heard correctly. Still married, still someone else's wife. That's when it flips. Daniel doesn't frame it as betrayal first. He frames it as sin, cultural violation, spiritual contamination. In his mind, he hasn't just been lied to. He has participated in something that stains him. And that language matters. Because once you call something a sin, it's no longer a mistake. It's moral damage. Notice what happens next. He centers himself immediately. I have committed the worst sin. Not you lied to me. Not you betrayed me. I committed a sin. That shift is important. He moves from partner to victim. He's not just hurt, he's morally injured. And here's where the power changes hands. Lisa panics. You can see it in her body. The desperation kicks in fast. This wasn't supposed to explode like this. She thought maybe he'd be upset. She didn't expect existential outrage. So she reaches for the ultimate gesture. Do you want your ring back? That moment is everything. Because it's not just about the ring. It's about control. If he stops her, she still has leverage. If he grabs her hand and says, no, we'll fix this, then she's still chosen. But he doesn't move. He just stares. And that silence is louder than anything he said so far. Now we have to ask something uncomfortable. Is he truly shattered or is he calculating? Because if this is the worst violation of his values, if this destroys his identity, why isn't he standing up? Why isn't he walking out? Why isn't he done? Instead, he sits there, repeating the word sin, repeating how this makes him look, repeating how his community would react. That's not just heartbreak, that's reputation anxiety. And then there's Lisa. The timing of this confession is suspicious. Months of daily calls, plans for marriage, international travel. And now she tells him? Why now? Guilt? Pressure? Or did she think she could manage the fallout once she was physically there? Because here's the uncomfortable truth, this isn't just about love. It's about leverage. Daniel's image of himself as morally upright just cracked. Lisa's image of stability just cracked. Both of them are suddenly exposed. And in that exposure, the balance shifts. The ring sits between them like a verdict. He says he has committed the worst sin. He looks betrayed. He looks furious. He looks ashamed. But he doesn't leave. And that's the detail that should make you pause. If he's truly morally shattered, why is he still sitting there? Daniel thinks he knows the full damage. He thinks the betrayal is simple. She was married to a man. He slept with another man's wife. His outrage is built around that picture. His shame is built around that image. But that picture isn't accurate. And that's where the tension gets heavier. Because Lisa didn't just hide a legal technicality. She edited her past. 2 of her previous spouses were women, including the one she's still legally married to. Daniel doesn't know that. Not yet. Right now, he's reacting to what he believes is a traditional moral violation. What happens when the foundation of that belief shifts? Does it soften the blow, or does it make it worse? Lisa knows the answer probably isn't good. That's why she stops short. She tells him about the marriages. She admits she's still legally tied to someone. But she carefully avoids one critical detail: gender. That's not an accident. That's strategy. And if you watch closely, this is where fear takes over. Not guilt, not honesty, fear. She's not calculating immigration policy, she's calculating abandonment. If she drops that final piece, does he explode? Does he walk? Does he expose her? In her mind, keeping that detail buried feels safer than telling the full truth. But here's the problem. Partial honesty isn't honesty. It's delayed fallout. And that's where Faith enters. Late night call. Lisa spiraling. Faith listening. And instead of comforting her blindly, Faith asks the uncomfortable question. Did you really tell him everything? That lands harder than Daniel's reaction did, because it forces Lisa to confront the truth about her confession. She didn't clear the table. She rearranged it. Faith pushes again. What about the women? And Lisa admits it. No, she didn't tell him. Now the unease shifts. It's no longer just about cultural rules. It's about collision. Daniel has openly expressed strong beliefs about relationships and tradition. He has framed morality in rigid terms. If he struggles with the idea of sleeping with another man's wife, how does he process that the spouse isn't a man at all? Would that calm him? Or would that ignite something deeper? And here's another layer people might miss. Is Lisa protecting him from cultural backlash? Or is she protecting herself from rejection? Those are not the same motive. Meanwhile, Daniel sits in his anger believing he knows the whole story. But something about his reaction feels slightly too controlled. He's furious, yes, but he's still contained, still present, still invested. Does he sense there's more? Because when someone confesses in stages, you can feel it. You can feel when a truth isn't finished. And if he suspects there's another layer, that changes everything. Now the relationship is sitting on two ticking clocks, the marriage itself, and the gender reveal attached to it. Lisa says she can't tell him. Not won't, can't. That word choice matters, because it tells you she already knows this isn't survivable in its current form. And once someone starts deciding which truths are too dangerous to share, the real explosion hasn't even happened yet. Up to this point, it's easy to cast Daniel as the wounded party. He was lied to. He feels humiliated. He believes he violated his own values. On the surface, that makes him the victim. But then something doesn't add up. If his reputation is destroyed, if his ancestors are ashamed, if this is truly unforgivable, why is he still there? He shares the cab ride back. He doesn't storm off into the night. He doesn't pack a bag. He doesn't end the engagement. He stays in the hotel. Same building, same situation, same future still technically intact. That's when doubt creeps in. Because outrage without action is a strange thing, especially when someone frames the situation as spiritually catastrophic. If this is the worst sin, you don't sit beside the person who caused it. You remove yourself, unless there's something else anchoring you. This is where the audience splits. One side sees a man trying to process betrayal in real time. Shock can paralyze people. Anger doesn't always translate into immediate exit. Maybe he's stunned. Maybe he's embarrassed. Maybe he needs time. The other side sees calculation. Because let's not ignore the obvious. Walking away means walking away from the possibility of America, from opportunity, from a different life. And that dream has been part of this relationship from the beginning. So now the central question shifts. Is Daniel reacting emotionally or strategically? Watch how he frames his pain. He talks about reputation, about how he looks to his family, about what others will say. That's external focus. It's image-based. It's not you broke my heart. It's you damaged how I appear. That distinction matters. And Lisa isn't innocent in this dynamic either. The moment she senses she might lose him, she leans into vulnerability. Tears, apologies, self-blame, offering the ring back. That can be genuine fear. But it can also be a survival tactic. When someone feels power slipping, they try to soften the other person, make them feel needed, make them feel morally superior. It's a subtle shift. She moves from partner to penitent. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. What if both of them are playing defense at the same time? Daniel uses moral outrage to regain control of the narrative. He becomes the injured one. He holds the high ground. Lisa uses emotional fragility to avoid full accountability. She becomes the desperate one. That's not love. That's leverage management. Now add another layer. If Daniel leaves, what does he lose? The dream, the visa process, the future he's been working toward. But if he stays, he keeps that door open. And what about Lisa? Is she financially stable enough to actually deliver on that promise? Or is Daniel clinging to something that might not even materialize? Who really holds power here? The audience feels it. Social media splits instantly. Half defend Daniel. Half say he's clearly staying for opportunity. The purity of victimhood starts to crack, because real victims don't usually sit calmly in the getaway car. And as this moral tug-of-war plays out, something else starts happening. Lisa spirals. Alcohol enters the picture. Her composure slips. Daniel pulls inward. Quiet, distant, controlled. Two different coping styles, one loud, one silent. The tension shifts from accusation to endurance. So now the question changes again. He says he's ashamed. She says she's terrified of losing him. But when pressure builds like this, which one actually breaks first? Now the fallout actually starts to show. Up until this point, it was shock and accusation, words flying, morals invoked, rings offered. But this is where the emotional weight settles in. Lisa drops to her knees, not metaphorically, physically. That image changes the power dynamic instantly. When someone lowers themselves like that, the relationship stops being equal. It becomes vertical. One person pleading, the other deciding. Daniel doesn't reach down to lift her up. He walks away. And that walk says more than his speeches about sin ever did. Because now he knows something important. She is afraid to lose him. Deeply afraid. Afraid enough to beg. Afraid enough to humiliate herself again on national television. That fear becomes currency. Meanwhile, she spirals. No food. Emotional overload. Then alcohol. Not because she's celebrating. Because she's panicking. Alcohol becomes anesthesia. And when panic mixes with ego damage, it rarely leads to clarity. Daniel, on the other hand, gets quieter. That silence isn't weakness. It's positioning. He talks about betrayal, about shame, about how he was made to look foolish. He frames himself as the wounded man who gave his heart. And maybe he believes that. But he also understands something now. He has the moral high ground. Before this confession, they were negotiating as partners. After it, he's negotiating as the wronged party. That shift matters long term, because from here on out, any forgiveness comes with conditions. And here's the subtle but critical detail. He still doesn't leave. If this truly violated everything he stands for, this is the moment to end it. She's vulnerable. She's apologizing. He could walk away with pride intact, but he doesn't, which gives us partial clarity. He's angry. That part is real. But he hasn't chosen morality over ambition. Not yet. And that's where the dynamic becomes dangerous. The more desperate Lisa becomes, the calmer Daniel appears. The more she chases reassurance, the less he gives it. That imbalance slowly inflates his value in the relationship. Now he's the one who decides if this continues. This is no longer about love. It's about leverage. If he forgives her, it won't be because everything feels healed. It will be because staying benefits him more than leaving. And if that's the foundation of reconciliation, then every future argument carries this moment in the background. She will owe him. He will remind her. And relationships built on moral debt rarely feel equal. But here's the tension still sitting under all of this. He thinks he knows the full extent of the betrayal. He doesn't. He believes he was involved with another man's wife. That belief fuels his outrage. That belief shapes his identity crisis. But there is still one piece of information that could completely rearrange this dynamic. The gender of the spouse. Right now, he feels wounded, but powerful. When that truth surfaces, the entire balance could reset. And if this reaction is what we get from half the story, what happens when the other half hits? By now, the shouting has cooled down. The tears have slowed. The alcohol haze has settled. What's left isn't drama, it's decision. This is where the real question finally surfaces. Not was she wrong? Not was he embarrassed? The real question is simpler and harder at the same time. What matters more to Daniel, his belief system, or his opportunity? Because here's what we've seen clearly. His outrage wasn't fake. His reaction wasn't manufactured. The language he used came from somewhere real. Shame, community, reputation. Those things matter to him. But so does the future he's been chasing. And when someone is forced to choose between moral discomfort and long-term gain, the choice tells you who they are. He didn't walk away. That single fact answers more than any speech about ancestors ever could. If his belief system was absolute, the relationship ends at the restaurant table. If his principles were immovable, the ring never stays in the same room. But he remains. He cools off. He isolates. He recalibrates. That's not a man choosing purity. That's a man weighing cost versus reward. Now flip the lens to Lisa. She fears abandonment more than exposure. That's why she confessed partially but not fully. That's why she begged. That's why she drank. Her biggest fear isn't public judgment. It's being left. Daniel's biggest fear isn't shame. It's missing the opportunity. Both are operating from scarcity. She believes this might be her last shot at love. He believes this might be his clearest shot at a new life. When two people come together from fear instead of stability, love becomes secondary. The relationship becomes a bridge, a solution, a transaction wrapped in affection. That doesn't mean feelings aren't real. It means they aren't the strongest force in the room. And here's where things get colder. When Daniel eventually learns the full truth about her past marriages, the reaction will likely intensify. His language will get sharper. The moral framing will get heavier. But will he leave? Based on behavior, not speeches? Probably not. Because once someone has already swallowed a moral compromise, the next one becomes easier to justify, especially if the end goal still shines bright. That sets up a future dynamic that's hard to ignore. If they marry, it won't be balanced. Daniel will carry the moral high ground. Lisa will carry the guilt. Every disagreement will trace back to this moment. Every conflict will quietly reference the debt she owes him for staying. That's not romance. That's leverage. And here's the final uncomfortable truth. The bed incident wasn't rock bottom. The screaming wasn't rock bottom. Even the confession wasn't rock bottom. The real collapse was trust. Once trust becomes negotiable, everything else becomes negotiable too. Morals, pride, dignity, love. This relationship survives not because it's strong, it survives because both are afraid to lose what the other represents. And when fear becomes the glue, the cracks don't disappear. They just wait for the next truth to hit.